Okay, continuation of lesson 7.1 in intermediate algebra, 7.1b. This is the second video. And we are on identities and equations with no solution. So we are trying to solve for x when we have a problem like this. Trying to find out what number we can put in there for x that will make that a true statement. So we distribute. Subtract 6x from both sides so that we can get our x's by themselves. Notice I have 0 x's, so that means that goes away, which means I have that and I'm just kind of stuck. It's like, okay, what does that mean? That means there's no solution for this equation. That means there is no number that we can put in for x that will make this equal to this. So when the x's disappear, when your variable disappears, and you get two numbers that are not equal to each other, then there is no solution. Alright, and that's what you write for your answer, no solution. Let's look at this one here. Again, we do our distributive property. Okay, we add 15 to both sides, and we get 3x equals 3x, nothing there. Okay, that turns into a 0, and that turned into a 0. So I have that, so I divide by 3, and I get x equals x. Okay, whenever you get two answers that are the same, but your variable either disappears or it says that it's the same, x equals x, that means that you can put absolutely any number in your original equation and it will be a true statement. So let's say that we decide, I'm just going to put 4 in there. So 3 times 4 is 12, right there, equals 3 times 4 minus 5. So I just picked a random number 4. This gives me negative 3. 4 minus 1 is negative 1. So negative 3 equals negative 3. Well, that's a true statement. So basically I just grabbed a number. Any number you want to put into this original one will make a true statement. So when your answers are equal to each other like that, and either the variable goes away and you have negative 15 equals negative 15 or x equals x, anything works. So the answer for that one would be an infinite number of solutions. Okay, let's go to solving equations by factoring. Alright, so we'll just jump right up to example number 9, and we have x squared minus 2x minus 24 equals 0. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and factor this, and we're going to solve it. And if you remember in factoring, you make these two little parentheses here. Only when it's equal to 0 is this going to work, and only when there's an x squared and there are 3 terms will this process work. It's called a trinomial. Okay, so if you remember, take the square root of the first term and you look at the third term and find two numbers multiplied together that give you 24, added or subtracted give you 2. So if we did something like 8 and 3, 8 times 3 is 24, but the difference between 8 and 3 is not 2. So let's just do 6 and 4. 6 times 4 is 24, and the difference between 6 and 4 is 2. So that's a number that we're going to work. Now we have to worry about the signs. Okay, so if you remember, this sign here will go on the biggest one. That doesn't necessarily mean that we won't have a negative on the 4 here. It just means that we know that this is going to be a negative because this is a negative. Okay, now we have to figure out what here. So a negative 6 times what is a negative 24? Well, a negative times a negative is a positive. That's not what we want. So a negative times a positive will give me a negative 24. Now let's look and see what we have here. Negative 6 plus 4 is a negative 2. So that's correct. Alright, so we factored it, but we did not find out what x equals. Okay, what we're looking at is what will make this 0. Well, if this were a 6 minus 6, that would be a 0, right? So x has to equal 6. And what will make that 0? Well, a negative 4 plus 4, same number, opposite signs will make that 0. So my x equals negative 4. So I have two answers here. I have x equals 6 and, or x equals negative 4. So one of these will work. X equals 6, x equals negative 4. So those are your two answers there. Alright, let's keep going here. I can get rid of all my stuff. Alright, example 10. 1/3 x, and that is a cubed. Boy, that writing just gets so little. X squared plus 1/2 x. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is get rid of the fractions by finding the common denominator of the 3, the 6, and the 2. The common denominator there is 6. So let's distribute that. 6 times 1/3 x cubed equals 6 times 5, 6x squared plus 6 times 1/2 x. Alright, we look there. 6 over 3 is 2. That is going to cancel with that. 6 halves is 3. So we have that. Alright, so let's write this all in the same side. So subtract that from both sides and the 3x, and we get 0. Now I'm going to factor out what's common to these. I have an x that's common to those. Okay. Alright, so let's move a bunch of this stuff up here. Alright, so when we have a number in front of my x squared, I can't just do 2 parentheses and get an answer. Eventually that's what I'm going to do, is make those 2 parentheses, but I've got to do a couple things first before I do that. Okay, and this x here is going to just kind of tag along right now. Alright, so what we do is we take whatever number is here in front of the x squared and the last number and multiply them. So 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Now what I'm going to do is find 2 numbers multiplied together that give me this number and added that give me this. So remember in the last one we just found 2 numbers multiplied together to give me this, added or subtracted to give me this. Alright, the only difference is I multiplied this times this and got negative 6. Now I'm finding 2 numbers that multiply together to give me this and added to give me that. So whenever you have a number in front of your x squared, you do this extra process. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tag that along, and I am going to write that, and my minus 3 equals 0. So 2 numbers multiplied together give me negative 6, added together give me a negative 5. Okay, so in this case it's going to be a 6 and a 1 or a 3 and a 2. Okay, because 6 times 1, well, negative 6 times 1 is negative 6. 6 times negative 1 equals negative 6. 3 times negative 2 equals negative 6, and negative 3 times a positive 2 equals negative 6. So one of these sets of numbers is going to work. Alright, the one we choose is the one that when we add them, we get negative 5. Okay? We add these two, we don't get negative 5. We add these, no, no. The only one that works is this one. Negative 6 plus 1 is negative 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the negative 6 and the positive 1 here, because these two, when added together, give you that. And I'm just going to leave them just like that. Alright, so now I have x times 2x squared minus 6x plus 1x minus 3 equals 0. Now we've done this before, so shouldn't be too crazy. Alright, now we're going to group. We're going to group these two numbers together and these two numbers together. Okay, now we're going to look at these and factor. And what factors out of this? A 2 and an x. And we'll keep, again, this x here away from everything. And that leaves me with an x minus 3. Okay, over here, I can't factor anything out, so I'm just going to leave it as x minus 3. And actually, there's a 1 here, right? Okay, let's keep that 1 out there. Alright, so now what we're going to do is notice this number and this number are the same. That will always be the case. So now I can rewrite this as 2x plus 1. The numbers outside the parenthesis go together, and the number inside the parenthesis I just write one time. Okay, now let's see what happens when I try to move this. So the white equation down at the bottom is where I'm at this point. Now I can just take off a lot of the brackets there. I could have left them there, but it's easier just to take them off. Okay, now I'm solving for x. I need to find out what number I can put in for each one of these x's so that when I multiply all this together, I get 0. Well, one of these x's have to make the parentheses 0, so that let's say that if I found a number that makes this 0, 0 times this will give me 0, because 0 times anything is 0. So, if this x equals 0, it doesn't matter what's in here or what's in here. When I multiply it by this 0, I'm going to get 0. So that's one of my answers. Alright, so I need to find out what's going to make this parenthesis 0. So 2x equals, subtract 1 from both sides, divide by 2, divide by 2. So when x equals negative 1/2, my answer is going to be 0. So that's one of my answers. And x minus 3 equals 0. So when x is 3, I get, so those are my three answers there. And when you have three x's, 1, 2, 3, you're going to get three different answers. So 0, negative 1/2, and 3 are my answers. Okay, so let's go on to 7.1c as we finish up this lesson.